This is the Barbell Therapy and Performance Podcast, where traditional healthcare is redefined to help listeners achieve peak performance, accelerate recovery, and elevate overall health. Hosted by Dr. Brett Scott, a doctor of physical therapy and national strength coach, this podcast explores the worlds of fitness, alternative medicine, and holistic health. Each episode uncovers innovative strategies and practical solutions for those seeking to enhance their quality of life when conventional methods fall short. It is our firm belief that every living thing has potential, and it is our mission to help you find that potential.
All right, Jess, welcome to the show. For all of you that don't know, this is Jess Burdick, or J Birdie, as many people in the world of powerlifting know her. So Jess and I have been working together for a couple years now as a coach-athlete relationship. But also Jess owns her own powerlifting and fitness gym in Medford.
Yes, Medford.
Medford. And she also competes in powerlifting and has competed in weightlifting and coaches powerlifting as well. So she's had quite a unique background in this field and has spent quite a bit of time in it. So Jess, how did you get into well, what happened first? Did you start your own training center, or did you get into powerlifting first?
So I started powerlifting when I was 26 or 27, and then the gym came years later.
So what got you into powerlifting?
So I was doing kind of just like general not with like my own personal training or my own fitness like career. I just was working out, doing like a lot of kettlebell stuff. I think there was like a big like boom of kettlebell workouts in like the 2015 time frame. So I was doing a lot of kettlebell stuff then. Some barbell stuff, but not a lot. I actually I was working in Sudbury as a personal trainer, and I was really close to Cressy Sports Performance. So they were probably like 10 minutes away from each other. One of the coaches there was a friend of mine, and he said, I think you'd actually be a really good powerlifter and you should meet Tony Bonvecchio. He runs like a women's only powerlifting group on Thursday. I remember it was like Thursday nights at 7. I didn't know powerlifting was a sport until like I probably did like 3 or 4 sessions with Tony. I had no idea. I knew it was, something people liked to do, but I didn't even realize it was a strength sport until well after I started with him. And I think it was good kind of like going in blind, because it made it a little less intimidating knowing it was just kind of like for fun, and it was just a bunch of women getting strong together. So it was cool.
Yeah. I actually had Miguel on yesterday, Miguel Aragon.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So we talked about PRI and how he blends that into strength and conditioning, and how that affects like baseball players specifically, but very smart dude.
That's
very
funny.
Smart guys over there. I've had, do you know Greg too? Greg Robbins?
Yeah. Yeah. So Greg and Tony kind of ran the program together, and then it was more Tony's. And then I think a year into that's when they left and then opened up their own place.
Yep. And so what made you want to start your own gym? So it's kind of unique where I didn't necessarily want to. I think there was a time before the pandemic, it was like 2019, where I was trying to figure out where my place was in the powerlifting world, but just in the strength and conditioning, just as like a personal trainer or a strength coach or whatever you want to call it. And I was really disenchanted with the industry, which I think that just happens after like 7 to 8 years of coaching. You're like, what am I doing? Like, where's my niche? Like, who am I actually making a difference? So I was actually potentially looking to work somewhere else. Like I just wasn't making money. I wasn't doing good at this gym. I was doing well. I was doing as good as I could at this gym I was working at. I was a manager, but it just, I just couldn't like make a name for myself, I felt like. And then the pandemic hit, and my roommate at the time was leasing a office space, and she asked if I wanted to just like put some of my equipment in there and train, because I was training people outside. And she was like, just put your squat rack in here and like take some people. You can wear a mask and it will just be like you and one person. And I'm like, yeah, that works. So it was this 215 square foot room. So like
My office.
tiny. Yeah, tiny. I mean, that looks even bigger just from this little picture. I can see it looks even bigger than my office. There's no windows. Small, very small. And with COVID, it was kind of awkward because like, you know, I had to be very careful with people at the time. This was before vaccines, obviously. And we had to like kind of be far away from each other, but like the space was so small. We made it work. So I only had maybe like a few weeks of doing that. And the gym I was working for caught on to me. I wasn't hiding it. I was not hiding it. I even wrote it in my newsletter that they got. So the owners, and they just called me and they were like, hey, like you're kind of opening your own space. And I'm like, well, it's like a room. Like I'm really not.
Yeah.
But it did feel really cool to start doing my own thing. And I was like, maybe this could be a thing. So they kind of like let me go. And I was like, I have to just go all in. So about 8 months into that, me doing fully my own thing, I did expand within that office building and had more room. And then I've now since expanded like 2 times within that same office building. So now I lease the entire thing. But for the first like 6 months, I was not sure JBF was actually going to be a forever thing. And now it's almost 5 years.
Yep. Yeah, I did the same thing starting about 7 years ago. Started by accident, basically. Got let go from a job, and then here I am now. But so within that, so now you have coaches working for you and everything else too. So it's really cool to see how far we can bring this. In your background too, you have your degree in exercise science or exercise physiology or something, and so you did the whole strength and conditioning thing. So, what would you say is the difference between like being a strength and conditioning coach for like a sports team or a college team versus being a powerlifting coach?
I would say and I think it depends on the ages more of people than like where they're at if they're in a collegiate setting, things are definitely a little bit more professional. If they're coming to you as like a team, which I did do for a little while. And you're in charge in the weight room, but their coach is, I think, the ultimate person that decides, how often they train, what they should be training. Even if you yourself are, I don't want to say smarter than the coach, but you maybe in terms of, exercise physiology, you are smarter than the coach, and you might know what that athlete in particular needs, but sometimes these coaches are hung up on certain things and they want them to run more or they want them to do more, whatever, cardio or whatever. I think with powerlifting, you have, especially because of the type of people that we mostly see, they're gen pop. So they have more time, they have a little bit more money, and they're not kind of bogged down by a season. So they're actually more consistent than athletes. I love training athletes, but the thing that was like really, really hard was that they were so inconsistent, but how could they not be? They're like in school. Is everything okay over there?
Yeah, I'm just trying to refocus the camera because I was messing with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in school. I mean, you know how it is. They're in school, that their parents have a say, which can be frustrating. But coaching powerlifting, you have more freedom. It's a little bit more blue collar, I guess, like for lack of a better term. Like you have people that, you're in a totally different setting. So you can kind of tell them to stop being little babies, which, you can do that with athletes, but you can only do that so far. And yeah, I mean, it definitely like paved my way for being a powerlifting coach, and I like it a lot better. I mean, I don't know if I would still be a strength and conditioning coach if I was just training athletes, high school or college.
Yeah. Miguel actually said the same thing yesterday of like, I think he was like 7 or 8 years in.
Yeah.
I think he was at Cressy and he's like, all right, like, I don't know how long I can do this for. Like, they're brutal hours. Regardless of what level you're coaching at and everything, it's like rinse and repeat, same thing from like 5:30 a.m. till sometimes 8 p.m. every night. And like, okay, yeah, what am I doing? And it's like, am I making a decent buck doing this? And a lot of coaches aren't. Like, this is a field that's drastically underpaid. So
exactly.
There's a lot that comes with that. So like, yeah, I like the private sector much better than I think I would ever like being in that place. And let's talk a little bit about too. That's probably the hardest part I have as a physical therapist and as a coach in the private sector is working with sport coaches. So, the guy that's directly in charge of the soccer team, football team, track team. Managing some of these people becomes very hard because some of these coaches are so set in their ways and it's like they opened one page of a book and saw, like we have a very high level elite runner right now that's getting looked at by a bunch of D1 schools, and her Matthew has probably told you about it.
Yep.
But all she does is GHD, eccentrics, and a reverse Nordics and deadlifts as a runner. And it's like, there's so much more to training a runner than that we have to take into account. And
that's what the coach wants her to do, right? Like
that's what he has. He's like forcing her to do it like 3 times a week.
Yeah, he told me about her like 2 weeks, like last week or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just like, and when shit happens, the parents can come back to us and be like, well, why did she get hurt or whatever? Like, she's training to prevent injury. It's like, well, yeah, but he's overdoing just hamstrings and she's like neurologically fatigued from this. Like, we need to do other things too. Like, I probably wouldn't even really have this person deadlift in season, like as heavy as they are.
Yeah.
It's not really in the utility department.
Does he think because he's doing just because she's running, so she gets enough like quad work, so that's why he's hammering the hamstring so much?
Again, I don't really know. Like, I think it's, we see a lot of hamstring pain and injuries in high level runners and sprinters. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing we should train. It's like he's trying to do the minimal, but almost putting in like a max emphasis on just that.
Yeah.
So that becomes very hard, which we don't have to really deal with as powerlifting coaches.
I think I was saying like the coaches they just want them, like, at least I trained a lot of swimmers actually. They were my favorite to train because they're very individual, which kind of like how a runner is. And the coaches were just hands off at the time. But the parents were actually more, of an issue sometimes than the coaches were. But as a powerlifting coach, we're getting people essentially that are, post-college, and their parents. It would be wild if their parents reached out to us. So yeah, I haven't had to deal with someone's parents in 6 years.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And so what do you love about the sport of powerlifting and coaching powerlifting?
That's a good question. I mean, sometimes in the gym, we point to the signs that say stronger than you think. That's like my JBF little tagline. And it's a joke. Sometimes we make it a joke. We're like, like if someone lifts something, we're like, oh yeah, you're stronger than you think. But I do actually really resonate with that. When I started powerlifting, I think I just was kind of shocked at what my body could actually do, given, I mean, I grew up when in the, 2000s, where we were told as women to be skinny. I mean, every magazine was like shaming celebrities for being fat or being not toned. Yoga got really popular when I was in high school, college, and having like kind of like that idealistic, like lean yoga body, whatever that is. That means nothing, but at the time it meant like being super lean. So when I was introduced just to lifting weights in general, I was like, oh, like I can like do a lot more than I ever thought I could. And it just really helped me like overcome a lot of anxiety and depression in my mid-20s. So learning powerlifting felt like kind of this secret, and I wanted other people, not just women, but anybody, to kind of like also have this secret that I felt like I had, that I was kind of no one told me about until I was well past college. So that's kind of why I love powerlifting, in the sense of like on a deeper sense, and then in a more of a physical sense. I mean, it's fun. You get jacked. It's fun to hit PRs with your friends, with with my clients, see what we can do on the platform. It's a lot of fun. And it's just a really good way to train day in and day out with, I'd say, like a lot of variety, where you're not, I mean, I've been doing it for almost 10 years and I'm not bored. I did pick up weightlifting. You can choose other modalities of training, but I think it's a really good lifelong way to train.
Yeah, and you didn't leave, like when you came to me to learn weightlifting, you didn't leave powerlifting. We did both.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even in that time, I'm pretty sure you hit a couple PRs in your powerlifting career along with training weightlifting. So
yeah, I did. I hit a total PR and bench and squat PRs.
Yep. That's what happens when you train with Brett.
Yeah. It was awesome.
And I think one of the coolest things, and this is where I think you have a good message for people, and you can just kind of see it within like the culture of your gym and stuff too, is so many people are scared to get into powerlifting or step foot in a powerlifting gym or step on a competition platform because they want to be the best. And they feel that there's going to be so much judgment that they're not the strongest person there, that they don't want to do it until they are the strongest. And as both you and I know, that's not simply the case. There's always someone out there stronger than you, unless you're the top 0.01%. And even then, like, I'm coaching someone that's that in this country, and like people are coming in and swooping in. And it's like, oh, we got to watch for this person and that person. Like, you never know who's going to be stronger than you. So what do you have to say to the people that are like that? Because I think the other piece too is what I admire about you is like when you came into weightlifting and powerlifting, and you've been at it for a while. So it's like the seasoned veteran mindset about it, I think. But it's like you've always had a solid expectation for yourself. You knew you weren't going to be the strongest one there. Like, you're strong, but like there might be people that are going to beat you, and you're okay with that. Like, you're there for yourself. But what would you say to someone to like convince them that they should get started in something like this?
Yeah, I think,
or what is your mentality and mindset behind it?
Yeah.
I think it's very different than a lot of people's, and I wish more people's mindset was like yours.
I appreciate that. It took definitely a long time to get there. Like, doing the weightlifting meet with you, I was like texting Emily, our mutual friend, and I was like, should I even do this? Like, the night before, I'm like, am I going to look like such an idiot? And she's like, well, what would you tell your clients? Which is exactly what I was telling myself. First of all, no one cares much about, no one cares about you as much as you care about you, which is a sad reality.
It's like the weirdest paradox of the sport of no one realizes it, but like internally, everyone is so worried about themselves. Everyone is worried about what everyone else is going to think of themselves, but no one is actually thinking about anyone else but themselves. So at the end of the day, no one gives a shit about
No one cares. I have never looked at someone powerlifting or weightlifting and been like, they're so weak.
Yeah.
Like never, like at a competition. The fact that they're out there doing it, and it sounds cliche, that's enough. But my mindset is it's taken a long time to get there. I have a very realistic mindset because I've been kind of my ass handed to me a few times. So it might not be the, the sexiest way to get there, but there was times where I was like inching towards being competitive in my weight class in powerlifting. And then they go and change the national totals. So then I was like not even close. But that didn't mean I didn't still want to powerlift because it's an amateur sport. You're not making money. It's a hobby. It's our glorified hobby, which is cool. It's awesome to wake up and have a why to do things, but your why doesn't have to be becoming a national champion, or being like, elite in any way. My why through the years has changed for having like this kind of mindset. And it's that like, I'm getting older. It doesn't mean I want to stop. I want to have freedom of movement. I want to be strong. And I don't care if this sounds like, when people say for a girl, but I want to be strong for 35. I want to be strong for 40, whatever that means. That's what I want, as I age. So that's really important to me. And I think to kind of help people when they're like, well, I don't lift a lot. Why should I compete? I always just say, my friend used to say this, who is actually an elite powerlifter. She used to say, if you're working hard, you deserve to be on the platform. Because again, it's an amateur sport. People are there just to kind of see what they can do. And you're right. It's like the top 0.001%. So most of the people at powerlifting meets, you're kind of all in the same pool. And then there's just literally one person who's like blowing everyone out of the water, which is that fun for them? I don't know.
Not always.
Probably. Yeah. It's probably sometimes demotivating for them too. I mean, speaking of Brooke, who is probably, she's always the best at every meet, it must be kind of boring for her sometimes, but we could talk about that for a second, because I think that's the piece people don't see is it's like, I want to be the strongest, right? But then once you get to that level, that's this whole new level of stress that's put on you. So now, right, I think there's fun in the game of getting stronger because there's a goal to be reached, right? And then, so yeah, we can look at it for Brooke and say, maybe this is boring, right? Because yes, at local meets, she crushes it now. And like, she's, as a 16-year-old, she just won at American Open Finals, for the youth category. And with that being said, now what was fun for her, I think, or challenging and stressful a little bit, was she was in the A session. So, we have B session lifters, which are, their totals are less than A session. A session's the top for those that don't know. But when you get to the top, so she's 16 now competing with people that are 25, 30. She had junior world competitors in her class or in her session that she was, she's not competing against them per se, but in her mind she is, and she wants to be out there. And, you don't want to be the first one done. That means you have the least total of all of them. So there's that. So now it's like, now she's competing with big girls, but it almost doesn't count. But then the other thing is now she has to perform every meet. Like, if you're decent and you have a bad meet,
whatever.
Right.
Now she has a bad meet. It's kind of like, shit, I only have one more meet to stay in contention for the world's team. I have to keep doing this. Who's going to swoop into my weight class? Now they're changing the weight classes in weightlifting next year.
Oh, they are? Oh.
They are, yep. So she's going to have to bump up another weight class because she's
71. She's 70.
She's a 71. It's going to a 77 because the 71s is going down to a 69. And with her developing and growing, like,
yeah, she's
it's not healthy for her to go down.
No.
So it's another factor we have to face.
Yeah.
But even there's it's kind of it has like an ominous narration to it, but it's called I think it's The Final Attempt on YouTube. And it follows the females, I think it was just the females, of the Olympic quad for the United States weightlifting team. And it was crazy to see the stresses that are put on them to perform. It's like everyone wants to be the strongest. I would never want to be them.
No.
Never in a million years. Like, they have so much stress put on them to perform at, 4 different international meets leading up to the Olympics. They have to stay in qualification. There's a point system. There's a NRS, national ranking system they have to be in contention with. You can't get hurt, but you want to train at a very high level.
Yep.
It's like, how do you balance all that? And then on top of that, a lot of them are sacrificing work, school. They're training twice a day. Like, they can't really do much besides training.
It has to be. Yeah, it had. Do you remember Alyssa? What was her last name? She was a very tiny, I think 57. Alyssa. It started with an R. She ended up having like an autoimmune, so she had to. She was like a national. I think she went to the Olympics. She said that people would be like, "How do I get to your level?" And I think about this all the time. She was like, "Okay, quit your job. You can't drink. You can't go out to eat. You have to like kind of say bye to your friends for a while." And she made it sound just so. It was so realistic. It was like the most realistic thing I think I've heard any professional athlete ever say. It was in a podcast on the weightlifting house.
That's a podcast.
Yeah. I think, like, honestly, when I think about that definitely changed like my mindset on things too. She was like, you can't do it if you have, or you can, but it would be extremely, extremely difficult to have a full-time job. Kind of also being single would probably be hard too, like having like a partner to help make money, or if you have a kid or a dog or something, like, doing it alone is very hard. So yeah, your whole life, it's also something that I wouldn't want to do.
Yeah. And yeah, I think statistically, when we went to Worlds Camp, they did a presentation for these kids basically that are on the Youth Worlds team, saying, okay, like, you guys are the top 10 in the country right now, but here are your odds at making the Olympics. And it's like less than 4% for one of them to make the Olympics.
Holy crap.
And they went through all the Olympians we've had on the U.S. weightlifting team. Only one pursued a full 4-year college degree. I think that was Wes Kitts, and he didn't start training until after college. And then one person maintained a full-time job training through a 4-year Olympic training cycle. And I forget who that was, but
yeah,
it really takes a lot of work. And then it's all for a big maybe. Like, you could go to the Olympics, miss 3 lifts, bomb out at your biggest meet ever. And where do you go from there?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think, and I mean, not to get into like maybe, financial aspects, but like,
yeah, that too.
It's huge. I mean, traveling like the country. I mean, I think weightlifting, we're speaking about weightlifting, but powerlifting, the one of the top powerlifters in the country that I know personally, who's in, I'm not going to say her name, but she's in Massachusetts. She travels all the time, but she pretty much works from home. She just has like a couple, to my knowledge, she just remote coaches people. She's not
like, she doesn't have like a full-time, like she has to go into work, and, she set herself up that can dedicate her life to waking up and training in her, her house. So
yeah, but that's not,
no, it's not for everyone. And also I think that's what it is the realistic mindset comes in of, like, I know realistically with like my resources, like what could I do more? Absolutely. I work in a gym, and there's days I'm like, I'm not lifting. I'm not. Or I'm like, I'm not doing my cardio today or whatever. So,
isn't that every day you do that?
Last night I lifted, and then I got home and I have these dumbbells. I'm actually looking at them right now. The power blocks.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing my accessories that I missed because I'm in my winter arc right now. Gotcha. Do you know what that is?
I've heard this new term of arc coming around, but I haven't kept up with the kids on it.
Ask Matthew.
Okay. Yeah. These youngins that have these terms that I don't know about. I'm getting old. So yeah, strength isn't all that it's cracked up to be. And like, as you see seasoned people go through it, it's always going to be stressful. You're always going to want more. You hit a PR, you're going to want a bigger one. Like, even I've been at this for 10 years now, and it's the same thing. It's like, I've gotten to the point where I was training really, really competitively. I did pretty well at my last meet. And then I got hurt, and it's been like, how the fuck am I going to get back there and do that again? Because if I'm really going to like do this, like to be competitive, like it's going to take more than I have to give it right now based on all the things I have going on in my life. So I have to go and have fun with it and not care, which is fine with me now. But a lot of young people don't want to hear that. It's like, over time, you just realize as a coach, no one gives a shit.
See, I think that's why, and you and I have talked about this a lot, we get very similar clientele in terms of like age and socioeconomic, like those type of factors. And I think it's because I'm so realistic with when a younger athlete reaches out to me, I'm like, why would you cut weight for your first meet? That's stupid. Yeah. Like, and I'm like, especially with like a girl who's, 21. I had a girl come, she was pretty young. She was 16 and she wanted to go to high school nationals, I guess. Yeah. And she was like, well, I want to bench 5 days a week, because her bench was pretty good. I mean, it was good. It wasn't like
national champion.
Amazing. Yeah, but it was good for lifting a year. And I never spoke to her again after our first session because I didn't tell her what she wanted to hear. Which at this point, I don't, need to tell people what they want to hear to make money. So I think, the younger coaches that are getting younger athletes are promising them that their program is what's going to get them to the next level. And we both know it's not a program. It's everything you're doing probably outside that program is what actually is going to get you to that next level. So, saying like, okay, but like, are you going out with your friends on Friday nights and training hungover on Saturday? Like, you can do that, but do you want to go to, nationals? Yeah. So, these things like in cutting weight is just for me. I mean, usually a no, unless they're going to attempt to go to nationals. Yeah. But even like, these local meets now are like doing best lifter of the day, which is great, but it's still a local meet. So, to cut weight and, it's still kind of like, is the juice worth the squeeze? I got that from Zach Gabor. He says that a lot.
Is the juice worth the squeeze? That's not a Zach. I love Zach, but he didn't make that quote.
I know he didn't make it up. I know.
That's like that's very old, Jess.
I learned it from him.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And the cutting weight thing, though, too, is interesting because someone was asking me the other day about that, or we had a conversation about why would you make people cut weight for even like a national meet? And it's like, well, it adds a whole nother dynamic into the sport of things you have to do, things you have to be committed to. It kind of, in a sense, measures dedication, but it's also something that, like, yeah, it doesn't, unless you're at the national level, it shouldn't really be a factor. And yeah, too many people at local meets you see like bomb out because they're just like dehydrated, malnourished, and like slept like shit because they're starving. So definitely a cool, unique dynamic to the sport at a national level, but it's like,
Right.
let's just get on a platform first before we, like, let's try it out, see how if we just have fun and enjoy the people that are there and the community that it brings. So why do you think powerlifting is like the greatest modality that people should, or adults should use to train with?
I think it's, a low barrier of entry where most of us, let's say we're mostly healthy, some aches and pains as you get older, of course. It typically yields to be the easiest thing for people to get into, even if they've never lifted before. You can, for instance, I'm just thinking of like the squat. A lot of people look at a back squat and they're like, I could never do that. But a lot of people can actually get into a high bar position with no pain. If you have shoulder pain or elbow pain, low bar probably is not going to be good in the beginning. But high bar position is super easy to get to, or you can use the SSB, the safety squat bar, to get someone into that squat position that we're looking for in powerlifting. And deadlifting's fun. Everyone loves to deadlift. It's also, I think, the foundation of any good, if you look at any good strength and conditioning program, squat, bench, and deadlift, usually, maybe not bench quite as much for athletes, except I know football still tests bench. Typically is a good foundation for any strength and conditioning program. I do love weightlifting. But teaching someone weightlifting, you could probably attest this more than me, who's never touched a barbell and, their spatial awareness is lacking, would be incredibly difficult as a coach. Whereas powerlifting just is an easier thing to teach somebody who's a complete beginner. Which I'm sure, with weightlifting, you obviously introduce powerlifting type techniques with squatting and stuff. It tends to be, and it's safe. So I think that's the other thing too. A lot of people look at powerlifters and they're like, you're putting all that weight on your back, and what about your spine when you deadlift, and all that shit that we have to combat every single day as coaches. But really, the people that hurt themselves with powerlifting, it's because they like dropped a plate on their foot, or like
one of my clients did that recently. He broke his foot.
Yeah. Oh, I think Matthew told me that. Yes. Yeah. I broke a couple toes dropping. I was doing an extra wide sumo, and I should have put the clips on the outside of the plates to get the plates even further away from my feet, but I was being lazy and I didn't. So I dropped like almost 300 pounds on my foot and broke a couple toes. So it's usually injuries like that are going to happen than like hurting your back squatting. It's something that leads up to that can maybe hurt your back squatting, but it's never that one thing. But injuries are typically like doing something stupid in powerlifting. Yeah. Missing the rack.
Those are the two major injuries I've seen in powerlifting and weightlifting. Working in a gym, is I've seen 2 broken feet, or 1 broken foot and a broken big toe
from dropping weight, right?
Yeah, one was a snatch. He fell, fell off balance, and so he just threw the bar forward, fell on his butt, and the weight just took a really weird bounce and bounced over the top of his foot and slammed his foot down. So that was
That's
like
awful.
that was the most gruesome one. And then Jack dropped a 25 kilo steel calibrated plate on his foot at the Ed Cohn seminar.
Oh, the one in
At Titan, yeah.
Oh, I was supposed to go to that. I remember that. Yes. Yeah. Oh, wait, he's your client?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I saw that online, and then he continued with the seminar.
For a little bit, yeah. I don't think he stayed the whole time, but anyways.
It's when it happened to me, I was in shock for like a few hours, and then the pain really set in after my body like wore off the shock a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, people get so worried about powerlifting and weightlifting as far as being dangerous, but the statistics show they're actually the two like least injurious rates of a sport. And like, I play hockey still. I get way more nervous playing hockey because there's 11 other people out there that I don't know where they're at all times. They're behind me. They're to my side. I can't see, my field of vision. Everything's dynamic and moving very fast.
Right.
And
you're getting old.
And I'm getting old. My hips hurt. Yeah. I did tear my groin playing hockey this year.
Oh, I thought that was.
I originally
was in the gym.
I had like I strained it pretty good playing hockey. I was recovering, and then tore my adductor doing a power clean. But
we're like, there's no injuries in the sport, and then you're like,
yeah, but I've been doing this 10 yeyears, and that's like this is the biggest injury that's kept me out the longest, and this was like the only traumatic one I've had. Everything else has been like little niggles of pain here and there that are like, I can train around this, and like it's not stopping me from doing my sport. Which
mine. That's most people. Yeah, with powerlifting, that's common. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like if I hurt my groin playing hockey, I can't play hockey. I'm done. My hobby is gone for however long. If I'm training, I can still train. If I'm powerlifting, I can still I could still squat and everything. My hockey team is still giving me shit because they're like, why aren't you back? And I'm like, dude, my hip flexor, like an adductor, like they can't do that movement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can squat okay. Like I'm not maxing out still. I can still feel it, but I can do it and get stronger at it. So even for that, like I'm using squatting as a rehab protocol right now to just gradually expose it to more load. And it's much more fun doing it that way than like doing it.
Well, yeah, you can, in what you said, you can choose, there's not 11 people coming at you when you're squatting, and you can choose your depth, you can choose the range of motion and the bar you want to use. We do have to tell people constantly. I mean, I know you as a PT have to as well, that we're not as fragile as we think we are.
Yeah, and if we just look at logistically, from whether it be a physical therapy standpoint or a training standpoint, the stories that people have been told are such bullshit of you shouldn't load your spine like that. It's too much weight on your spine. It's like, well, let's look at running or a football player, and let's look at the accumulation of stress and force over time versus, if you're running 5-6 miles even compared to what we're doing with 4 sets of 6 in a squat. The load is incomparable. Like you're not getting nearly as much load because load is force is mass times acceleration. When you have a bar on your back, there's not a ton of acceleration compared to running, jumping, getting hit in football or hockey, something like that.
Yep.
They're incomparable. So, yes, there's a chance you could always get hurt doing something if you're not ready for it. But it's the same, like on the PT side, people say, you popped that joint out of place and you need to go to the chiropractor, put it back in. It's like, well, if we look at football again and we're smashing heads and necks are bending all the way to the side, we don't see football players' necks just falling out of place. And it doesn't take, my hands can't just go with this little bit of, and go, oh, it's back in place now. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it's one of the hardest things to do is like de-educate people on these false claims they've been told and get them back to it. But yeah, I think powerlifting is like super great sport with a low barrier of entry for anyone. Where, yeah, weightlifting is a harder sport to get into for sure, which is kind of a shitty part about it.
Yeah, it's just more, I think the like rate of return on powerlifting is more immediate than weightlifting. So I think people just feel more accomplished. And I think weightlifting, it's like you're watching it and like you're like, oh, I just did so good. And someone's like, it looks exactly like the other one. You're like, yeah, but I use my hips more on this one. It's like not as like, I think I always say the term like big rocks. Like it's not as like a big of a rock as like hitting, you know, more depth in a squat or,
Yeah.
you know, so it's, we are trying to incorporate more weightlifting because people are seeing Matthew's, we both share a coach, Matthew.
Well, we share an employee as a coach.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, an employee, an employee. They see him and I doing more weightlifting stuff. And then you met our coach, Emily. So we're actually I'm going to be building like a real platform at JBF. And then
I'm going to come do a seminar.
Anytime. Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great idea. We're doing one in, we're doing like, I wanted to do an info session with me. I was going to have like someone random come in. So that could be you.
Okay. I'll be the rando there. Cool. Love it.
In January.
Okay. I'd be down for that. And then, what else do we want to talk about here, Bird?
So in the beginning, you said my name was Jessie Birdie. A lot of people think that. My last name is Burdick.
Yep. Okay. Sorry. My apologies.
No, it doesn't. It didn't. I was looking at there's this really awkward picture of me on this thing that you have me on.
Okay.
And it says Jessie Burdick. And I was like, I wonder if he knows my last name is not Birdie. I have no idea because a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's another Jess Burdick in the powerlifting world that is also referred to as Jay Birdie, correct?
He's just, I don't know if he's referred to as Jay Birdie, but his name is Jessie Burdick, which is my name, but he spells it Jesse. We actually get each other's, it's been a while, but we get each other's emails a lot.
Okay.
So I've had to, send him. Yeah. And him and we've chatted where we're like, it's kind of funny because I think he's considered probably more of like a famous strength and conditioning powerlifting coach than me. So when I first went in to see Tony Bonvecchio at Cressy Sports Performance, he saw my name like in an email or something, and he was like, "Wait, Jessie Burdick is coming to see me? Like, why?" And
then you walk in.
It was me.
Nice.
He was very disappointed.
What do you have to say too about the community of powerlifting?
I think I've made my own community, and I think what I've said, you and I have kind of similar folks, like this Gen Pop, people who, 25 to 40 age range, we could say. I actually have a lot of masters lifters now. It's becoming popular that there's, I have an 82-year-old competing in a couple weeks at the meet that's at my gym. I think a couple of your lifters are going there as well. So my community is great. I love what I've curated with Matthew, what I've curated with Alyssa Orlando, who's a meet director, where, at the meets at my gym that we've put on. And then my good friend Bev has really great meets too. I think there's this like subculture of powerlifting that's very young. And the community feels different than it did when you and I probably started,
where we were like learning from these old dudes who are like putting Tiger Balm on every they're putting it on every joint before they like hit a squat. You know, now it's just a different community where it's just very young. I mean, they're starting when they're in high school. I didn't even know what powerlifting was as a strength coach until I was 26 years old, 27, and I'm 35. So I think it's become a little trendy because of social media. And when something's very trendy like that, I think it becomes a little exclusive. So right now, I think the powerlifting community is great, but I think there's this sector of it right now that feels a little exclusive. And what JBF is about is inclusivity in the sport of powerlifting and fitness. So that's what I'm trying to curate with my clients. And when we're at meets, like being nice to people, helping people out on a squat rack, if, you know, warming up or whatever. So that's the community I like and what I try to do.
Yeah.
What do you think about the community?
I agree with you. Like it's definitely changed since I started in it. And there's always this like highly competitive sector of it, which is fine. Like I think there should always be that in sport,
Yeah.
and you're going to have that. And people should always want to strive to be better. But there's some people in the sport you will find are more cutthroat. And depending on who you are, I think the big thing everyone needs to know is depending on who you are as a person, like you need to find the gym that fits you well in that instance, or in your case of there are hardcore gyms out there where they're going to blare music and do X, Y, Z, to smash weights and want to try to murder someone before they get up for a heavy, max squat with 5 spotters.
Or like a second attempt bench.
Yeah.
The most boring lift.
Or you can find a gym like yours or mine where it's a community of people that just want to do better for themselves. They want a welcoming community of people that are like-minded and have similar interests to them. And that's what I'm all about at this point. Like I've been on the side of trying to raise, I'm like a father, trying
Don't
to
they call you dad?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Trying to develop high-level athletes.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, I just love seeing people make progress. And to have someone that just wants to do the sport for fun, they're pushing themselves, but they're taking themselves in a realistic manner, that their expectations are what they should be. Yes. The sport can be for anyone.
Yep. And that's exactly what it is. Like, it's honestly, and I'm not like right now, there's some, I don't know the drama, but there's something going on with that happened at a USAPL meet, and everyone's like kind of,
I saw something about this too, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I know some of the details, but not enough to speak on it, but it's about people feeling like excluded, or they felt like there was like some bullying. I don't know if it's personal or if it's like, community wide or what's happening. And I think that's where you and I agree on a lot of things, is that like, we're like not considered like the cool coaches. And I don't give a fuck, because we know the type. I mean, first of all, we're like business people too. So we know the type of person that's going to keep coming to us and that are going to stay with us long term. And those are the people that are in their 25, 30, 35, 40. Yeah, I kind of missed my point on that, but I think you know what I mean. I just don't really care that I'm not cool. But I've also we've stayed in between all these trends, and we have people that have been with us 5 or 6 years, which is pretty unheard of.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing, I think, is everyone. And it's easy to do this stuff as like a side hustle as a college kid and help your friends get stronger. That's kind of how I started too.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, let's see who's still doing it in another 10 years. Cause you see that with athletes too. And that's the sad part of the sport too, is you've seen so many people come into it with this dark desire to get better. and like they put their everything into it, and then they just fall off the map. It's like, what happened to that person?
Yeah, what happened to that person? I think about that all the time. I'm like, what happened to this person I saw at Nationals or the Arnold, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Yeah. Did they go too hard, too much, too soon, or
they burnt out?
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Where it's like, I'd love to see people do this more long term for their health, wellness, mental state, whatever. And it's just like, yeah, I wonder what not only like why do they quit powerlifting, but like what are they doing with their lives now that they're done competing?
Right, because that's what identified them.
Yeah.
As a person. And I think you and I have like some older folks who are clients, older meaning older than us, like 40, 50, 60. And that's like, sometimes I'm like, that is more impressive to me, not because they're old, but because they lived this whole life. They're putting themselves out there, which is really, really hard to do. Maybe they have kids, they have a full-time job. I'm thinking about that one, Sarah, she's Matthews trains her.
Denise.
Denise, yeah, like someone like her to me is more impressive, and she's very strong, is more impressive than, I'm not trying to compare, but like, you see these kids in these like hype videos and they're like, it's cool, but like, I'm like, yeah, and?
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot to walk into a gym at 40 years old and be like, I'm going to be a power lifter.
Yeah.
And then never mind, like, yeah, I love Denise for that stuff because it's like, not only did she pick this up out of nowhere, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, she is super strong. She works hard at it, but yeah, she's a mom. She has a full-time job. She loves this, but she has those realistic expectations of what she expects for herself, what she expects of her coach. And like, she's broken plenty of Massachusetts records.
Yeah.
I think we have New England records too, that are under her belt. So it's just really cool to see. What someone
it's just more, I think as a coach, it's more, that's more fulfilling for me than, training someone who's going to get mad that they missed their third squat in a meet. So
this is what it is. Anything else you wanted to add? I know we got to wrap up here soon.
No. Do you have any more questions?
Where can people find you?
I have 2 accounts on Instagram. J Birdie is just kind of like my personal, that's me, JBURDIE at J Birdie. And then my gym, jbf.boston, my account got deleted a few months ago. So this is my second account we've been trying to build up. So it's kind of in its working phases right now. That's at jbf.boston. And I'm actually getting a website refresh. So it's still jbirdiefitness.com, but I'm moving over to kind of like how your website is, like a little more like detailed and interactive than some random pictures from like 10 years ago that I put on. So yeah, jbirdiefitness.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Jess, thanks for taking the time to come on here today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
The last time I did a podcast, you asked me earlier if I've done one, and I remembered that. I really appreciate your questions because the last podcast I did, or like 2 ago, they were, the person was asking me about my hair flip when I deadlift. And I was like, what does that have to do with me being a coach? Or like anything we're talking about? So it felt like I wasn't taken seriously. So just as that, I appreciate your questions is what I was saying.
I appreciate you guys that have come on here because as of recent, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing something right because you, Miguel, Chris, Scott Dixon I had on have all been like, have complimented me at the end of the show to be like, you did a really good job. So
yeah, no, you did. And what I was saying is what people have done for me is they asked me a very broad question and then I have to do all the work and all the talking and there's no conversation. And I'm like, so that's it. But you actually asked
today. This is completely unscripted. So that was good. This is good because I normally don't do them. Like I usually have an agenda of stuff I want to talk about, but we've talked on the phone so many times late at night about coaching and
you're like
business
Jay
ownership.
Birdie, she's whatever.
Yeah, I was like,
she'll go off script anyways.
Yeah, yeah. We don't want to make too hard. So
yeah.
Again, thank you for coming on. Just we got to do our outro now with my new thing, and then I'll call.
Okay.
But don't hang up.
Okay.
84% of you that listen to this podcast frequently do not hit the follow button. If you've enjoyed any of these episodes, could you do us a favor and hit the follow button, leave a rating, and maybe leave us a review? It helps this channel more than you know, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. If you'd like to know more about training in person or online with Brett's Gym, Architect Fitness, please follow us on social at ARKITECT Fitness on Instagram, or visit ARKITECTFitness.com. Or if you want to rehab with barbell therapy online or in person, check out @barbell.therapy or visit barbelltherapyandperformance.com. Thank you for taking the time to listen.